So welcome to my November 11th, 2025 webinar entitled Communicating with Animals. Communication with animals um, is a topic that I have found both fascinating and challenging. I've worked on a good number of animals, dogs, cats, my daughter's horses, and some other animals, um, and with some success. Uh, the thing is, and the reason I wanted to do this topic is that I have not been completely confident about communicating with animals. I've been very confident about communicating with humans on a subtle level, and I'll go into the details of that in a minute. But I've had certain doubts about communicating with animals, and I've read some things and heard some things about animal communication, as it's called. The field is called animal communication, and I have been fascinated about that, but couldn't seem to apply what I knew about communicating with humans to animals with what I would call consistency. And so I took a webinar uh, with a gal named Pia Horsley, uh, and she has written a book called Animal Communication, and she's actually written several books. There's a little one on how to do it, which is kind of the basis of my talk tonight. At least it was part of my further study, and got rather deeply into it. And the more I read, the more I realized I knew exactly how you communicate with animals. I just was letting my doubt get in the way of my doing that with effectively. But my goal was to develop animal communication. It's something that people who do that, just as the people who teach energy work with people, say anybody can do it. It's just a matter of developing your intuition, your subtle perception, and learning to trust it. And trust is a very big factor in this. And I think all of you know what I mean. It's something that you have your intuition is kind of there, but you're not really sure. So you often look for verification. Um, and, it's easy to be doubtful. But it's really not a difficult thing to do, and it just takes some practice to develop confidence. I remember back when I was learning to do energy healing, I worked exclusively with people who were in the room with me. And then one day it dawned on me that if somebody is across the room from me, so to speak, and I'm not laying hands on them, and I never do. Um, that's the same thing if they're in another room, another city, county, state, country, any place in the world. Um, and it kind of freed me when I realized that the work was all the same. It was just a matter of tuning into the heart space and sensing what was there. So this work is done intuitively, as we say. It's something that's done in the heart space, um, from one's heart space to another's heart space. And that another can be a human or it can be an animal, because after all, humans are animals and it all works the same. Uh, all we have to do is get rid of, become confident, really, so that we don't doubt, fear, lack innocence. Innocence is a good word to describe that. You have to be very innocent when you do this work. Have no expectations, just whatever shows up. Not trying too hard, not being patient to allow things to just show up in their own time. I was working on a client today and I was really surprised. I was somebody I've worked with many, many times. And I was really surprised. It's like I scanned, as I usually do, their energy field and just, allowing my attention to go where it would. And it went into them, into their Can't remember where now. It was, nice and settled at the time. And it just stayed there and it wouldn't move. Oh, it was their central core. That's what it was, the energy core. And it went there, and my awareness didn't perceive anything in particular, and it wouldn't move. It was like stuck. And I got the sense that the energy field itself didn't want to reveal itself to me. I certainly couldn't see anything. And so I just sat there for the longest time, half an hour, I think, at one point, without interruption, just attention on that area. And it did loosen up. And the client told me after the session that they could feel it loosening up, and it had gotten better. But I, it was one of those things. It just didn't really come to me at the time. But I was patient with it, and that was the key thing: was just being patient with it, just taking the time that it required. That is, the person's energy field required for something to happen. And eventually, I was also clearing the entire intestinal tract from the top of the stomach, where the esophagus comes in, all the way down through the entire intestinal tract. And it was slow going. It was really slow going. I don't think I've ever had a situation where moving through the organ system like that took so long. And we just, there was stuff that just needed attention. Pardon me. But I didn't really know what that was. But I trusted that. So I can do that with humans. Got to learn how to do that with animals. So I took this webinar with Pia Horsley and got to work on an animal. And I was surprised. I just did what I always do, only this time with a particular animal, and I had lovely, lovely connection with it. So I've been practicing ever since. And yep, just do it the same way I do people. So how do we do that? I'm going to get right into the actual what we do. Um, the first thing we have to do is settle into ourselves. And I think most of you who are on the webinar at the moment practice transcendental meditation. So you know about settling into the self. It's just automatic, spontaneous, using the transcendental meditation technique. And it works beautifully. And then, there are thoughts there in meditation also, but one learns to let the thoughts just come and go, and one just stays with that um, sense of the self where there is no specific content. The mind is just quiet at that level and that space. So you settle into the self. So however you like to do that, you can use breathing techniques. You can use directedness in, putting your attention different parts of your body. Some people work from the ground up, and other people work from the top down. It's good to be grounded. Some people advocate putting the feet on the floor. I'm a cross-legged guy by tradition. That's how I feel comfortable and grounded. I ground into the chair that I'm sitting on or the mat, and then into the earth, and then up through my body and out into the cosmos, and it works great. So, however you settle into the self, that's the first step. So, we start that. And then we let our attention come into the center of the chest, what I call the heart space. Some people call it that. I use that term. It's a nice phrase. And so you feel into the heart space. And then let that expand outward. And when you get familiar with that, it just keeps expanding and infinite. But you may just have it expand to your skin, and then it may go beyond your skin. That's a good experience. And out to your aura, the energy field that you create around you. And then from that on out into the cosmos. So you awaken your heart space. So we start, settle into the self, put the attention into the chest, into the heart space, let that expand, and then put your attention on, or feel the animal that you want to communicate with in your heart space with unconditional love. What that means is no judgment, no expectations, just feeling a positive, loving feeling towards that towards that animal. And when we're working, particularly with our pets, um, that's pretty easy to do because most of us love our pets and feel really good about them. And so we just let our attention, you know, go there with love. Um, and then the trick now at that point, you're either perceiving an animal in front of you, or you're in your mind holding an image of typically holding an image of the animal, and it may be more than that, right? There may be a physical sense of it, and even a sense of smell. You may smell the animal. As soon as I say that, I my attention right now is on a horse, and I can smell the horse. Um, so you see and or feel the animal in your heart space with unconditional love, and then allow your heart space to merge with the heart space of the animal. What that means is moving from that sensory level of perception of the animal, seeing it, hearing it, touching it, tasting it, smelling it. I don't know how many of us ever taste our animals, but it could happen. Our animals certainly taste us. One of my favorite images, I'll never forget it, when my youngest granddaughter was brought home. She was premature, so at that point she was just 5 pounds, tiny thing, um, and she was laying in one of those bouncy baby seats, just where they lay back, but if they kick their legs or anything, there's a little motion. Lovely thing. The kids love it. And so she was laying on that, kind of wrapped up, but the face and forehead were showing. And the family's mastiff, huge dog, enormous dog. The head of the dog was bigger than the baby. And the dog came walking by, and it had already met the baby. It wasn't the first time, and it saw the baby, and his gigantic tongue just went across the baby's forehead. Um, and it was kind of like, we're just sampling, just making sure the baby tasted okay. It's way of dog's way, and smelling, of course, of verifying that the kid was okay. It was really sweet, and I appreciated that the parents weren't the least bit concerned. This gigantic dog next to this little bitty baby, and it was really adorable image. Um, and if you see that kind of a thing, you feel the love and the caring and concern and sense of protection that the animal has about the baby in this case. And you can't even miss it. It's just part of why we have dogs, and cats, but particularly dogs that way. It was just lovely. But you can't miss that feeling. So heart to heart connection. Now, sometimes as we are approaching that with our animal, we have to ask permission. And so requesting permission for connection and communication is a really important step here. Uh, Adding word connection to my note. Um, we have to have permission to connect with somebody. And that's true with human work too. Now, normally that's implied in that the person, if it's a client, they're concerned, or if they're talking about a relative or friend or something, that they're giving you their permission through their connection with that person. And it's one of the fun things. I just love doing it when somebody says, "Oh, my cousin, uh, has high blood pressure and is very anxious, and really needs some support." And I'll just immediately, even without knowing the name, sometimes just their feeling about their cousin, I just tune right into them, and you know, I know what to do. I can say, "Oh yeah, I see what's going on, and yeah, we can work with that." Is one of the really fun things to do because you get that sense of verification right away, because it just comes out of nowhere. The person says something and you just feel the connection in that same way that I just described it, feeling the connection with the dog who licks the baby's forehead. Um, so we request permission for connection and communication. And then we offer appreciation for the permission that they give us to communicate and for their wonderful qualities. We appreciate whatever they are, their support, steadfastness, wisdom, strength, courage, etc. Even their beauty sometimes. But we appreciate them, but particularly for their um, qualities of personality. Uh, and animals have the same qualities we do. They may not have all of them at any given, any given animal, but but then neither do people, right? So certain qualities dominate, and so but we always appreciate, things that we appreciate, things that are positive in our experience of the animal, and then we let the animal know from our heart to their heart what our desire or intention is in this period of connection. Or we may ask a question, perhaps starting with what we call a verifiable question. A verifiable question. Um, and that verifiable question is one that can be, the answer to which can be verified, usually by a third party. Um, where does the dog like to sleep at night? That immediately draws my attention to my granddaughter's cat, which is a tiny cat. It's kind of like a kitten, but I think it's full grown. It's just not very big. Um, and it's really quite cute. And she can carry this cat around, and she puts it in the basket of her bicycle, which is just absolutely adorable to see. And the cat will just stay there in the basket. And there's just this connection that she has. So if the cat is in the house at night, it will go to my granddaughter's bedroom and climb up into the bed. And she has I'm sorry, I can't think what you call it. It's an elevated bed that has a play space underneath it and a ladder. And the cat would just, right up there and sleep with the kid all night. And so, like, where does the cat sleep? Well, that's a verifiable question, right? Because I can ask the parents or even the kid now, where does the cat sleep? And, in the bed with me. So that's a verifiable question. So we may ask that kind of a question, or we may just ask a question, like, what do you like to do? Um, or what kind of weather do you like? Whatever. Or we may make a request. Uh, Now, request is only a positive thing. We want you to do something. Um, Via Horsley talks about if you make a request of a barking dog, you don't say, please don't bark. You say, could you please close your mouth? So it's a positive action, which is a doable thing, very important. In nonviolent uh, nonviolent communication, one of the things you learn about requests, which are very important because if you go through the steps of nonviolent communication, you have to wind up with often a request, and you can only request doable positive things. So you learn to, instead of seeing a negative, it's very bad when you're communicating with animals because they'll pick up on the negative thing. So if you're thinking I don't want this dog to bark, the dog will bark because that's what it gets is barking. So but if you say sit with your eyes closed or with your mouth closed, pardon me, with your mouth closed, you may get a quiet dog fairly quickly. So you got to be positive. And then notice whatever comes into your awareness. And I remember learning this when I was studying matrix energetics with Richard Bartlett. And he said it over and over. I was a slow learner. It took me a while to understand what that experience was of just noticing what shows up in awareness. And then in matrix energetics, we do what Bartlett called tracking, which is to follow what shows up in your awareness. So it may be a story, or you may see an image of the person, and your attention may move through the body of the person. Different qualities and feelings may show up. And I feel quite good at sensing the feelings that are inside different parts of a person's body. And different feelings may be in different parts of the body. And it's just what shows up. So just whatever comes into awareness, images, feelings, ideas, concerns, appreciation, support, guidance may show up and come to you. Animals can be very good guides, particularly if you connect with your spirit guide. My spirit guide is a hawk, or hawks in general. But in the last couple of years, there's been a hawk or maybe a pair. It's hard to tell. I only saw them together once. That's lived in my neighborhood, and very impressive animal. I have some wonderful pictures that I took because they alighted. One time he alighted on my porch railing. We were literally like 10 feet apart, and then he saw me. He took off. I didn't have a time to establish a connection. Um, and so if you're working with your spirit animal, they may very much have guidance for you, so you can go through this whole process, many steps of establishing connection and feeling into the animal and appreciating the animal and its wonderful qualities, and then saying, I have a situation and I'd like your guidance. What can you tell me? And can be amazed at what shows up, and it just comes into your awareness, and it comes in with a real clarity that you can trust, that you can count on, that is beyond doubt. Not because it's right, it's because you know where it's coming from. It's coming from that field of intelligence that guides and directs us all the time. So then we have to disconnect. And it's kind of important. No, it's more than kind of, it's very much important that we express our appreciation for the connection and communication that we have had with the animal and offer to reconnect in the future if that's an appropriate thing to do. It usually is. And then disconnect, which means take your heart space and withdraw from the animal. So the animal and you are no longer necessarily connected. Now, on one sense, you're always connected, particularly with those animals that are a part of your life. Um, and your spirit animal, even though it may not seem like it's a part of your life all the time, is still very much, you know, connected to you all the time. Um, but you at least can withdraw a little bit. So I wanted to just demonstrate a little bit, and I'm going to see if I can get this screen sharing thing to work. As I say, they've changed how it works. They've got new screens and uh, everything. So, oh dear. Okay, so I have to. How do I get out of that? I click again? No. How do I stop screen sharing? They've changed the way it works, and I don't like it. Okay, I want that. And I'm going to do this. Does that work? We'll get there, promise. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share the picture of the dog. And when you look at the dog, um, this is a wonderful dog. And um, it's got its little toy there with it. I think that's a beaver. Don't quote me. And if you look at this dog, when I look at the dog, I'll tell you what no, I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to just pause for a moment. Look at the dog and just sense the dog. And I like this picture particularly because I think this is just a, this dog embodies what we call a dog pet. It's just everything that's a pet dog. It's wonderful. Um, give you a moment here. Okay, for me, I see this. The dog is like looking at me saying, I'm here for you. Your joy is my joy. Your sorrow is my sorrow. This dog is empathetic. He embodies empathy, connection, and obvious loyalty. This is a dog you can count on. This is a dog that if you were a kid, you that dog would be with you every moment, not out of neediness, but out of loyalty. You see that? Now take a moment. You're looking at the dog. Now close your eyes, feel into your heart, and then feel the dog in your heart space. And feel the heart space of the dog. How does the dog feel? His dogginess, his great dogginess. You feel that? Isn't that delightful? That connection, that loyalty. Okay, just thank the dog now for sharing his being with you, his being a dog, a wonderful dog. Give him a pat, maybe take a lick. I once lived with a little dog just a few years ago. And when I would come home from playing basketball, I'd sit down in the hallway, in the front hall, and the little dog would come and stand up. It was a small dog. It would stand up, and I would be sitting down, and it would lick my neck, which was of course quite salty at that point because I've been sweating. And I never minded because the dog didn't have a slimy tongue. So it wasn't a bad experience. It was such a sweet sharing. It was really nice. All right, I am going to close out the dog and we will attempt to share. I'm beginning to learn how this works. And so this is a cat that I shared living space with. Now, the reason I want you to see this cat is it's going to betray some quality. No. Before I tell you the story about the cat, I'm just gonna again look at the cat looking right at you. Without blinking. Of course, it's a picture; it's not going to blink. But yeah, the cat just looks at you like that. Those wonderful golden eyes. Just take in what you get of the cat. Like the dog, I think this cat is a fairly typical cat. But he has some special qualities. See if you can sense what's unique about the cat. And again, you look at him, close your eyes, and then allow your heart space to merge with his permission, so that he can be known. He likes that. And just express your appreciation for his wonderful qualities as you see them. And now, if you would thank the cat His name is Audi, like the car. And just appreciate his having allowed us to connect with him for these moments. And we'll just separate and come back into our own heart space. So I'll tell you now the story about this cat, why it's so special to me, besides just being a really wonderful cat and what I thought was extraordinarily beautiful, long haired, like almost pure white. He's got a little bit of gray up on his forehead. And I think there was a gray spot on the chest. And so when I would do consultations, when I was first doing consultations, they were done in person. People would come to my house and I'd do them in my office space. And Audi would come in and he would look at the person for a moment, just briefly, and then he would sniff their feet. And dogs have very sensitive smell, but cats are pretty sensitive too. And he could sense what was the quality of the person in the smell of their feet. And typically, while I was working, then he would lie down and sleep at their feet, not my feet, at their feet. It was like he was helping. Well, not like he was helping me do my work. And it was just a charming experience because he would do it quite often. Um, but I remember very clearly one time I had a client who had been diagnosed with cancer. It was pretty advanced. Um, and even at that point, there wasn't a lot of hope that we would be able to reverse that. And Audi came in just as we were starting, and he looked at the person for a moment and smelled their feet, and then he looked at me, and he gave me this look, which just communicated to me, you know, this this man will pass on. And he walked away. He didn't stay. He didn't stay and rest at the man's feet while I worked. Um, this cat really knew what was going on. He was a wonderful. I'll call him an assistant, but he was like a co-therapist really. It was a wonderful experience. So anyway, uh, that's a cat. I don't have a horse picture for you. Um, it's getting a little late, so I think I will not um, get the snake out. But I have in my house a ball python. And I so much wanted to show you. Uh, I'm still contemplating doing it. It'd only take a couple. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go do it. So anyway, the ball pythons are unique animals. You can hear me even though you can't see me. Um, Pipe pythons are unique animals because they are awake only at night and they hunt at night. And during the day, they sleep and they don't like particularly to be disturbed. So I think, are you up? No, he's asleep now, which is strange because it's dark. But I am going to, yeah, we can get you out of there. Here we go. We're just going to show you off for a minute and put you back, okay? Oops, sorry. And a ball python feels safest when its head is hidden. So I deliberately tucked him in here. And here is Link. And he's called Link because of these interesting markings down his side. I'm going to stand up. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, back. Yeah, there. Oh, that's great. And he's a pretty good sized snake. Now I'm going to try to get the head out. He doesn't like it out. And as I said, I woke him up. So there we are. There's the head, right? right there above my finger. I don't know if you can see. Oops, sorry. I'm covering up your head. Here we are. There's your head. If I sit down, maybe that'll work better. Again, Zoom has these weird. Whoa. There. There's the head. And he's nice and warm. He's kept at about 82 degrees. Okay, I'm going to go put him back. And while I'm putting him back, I'll again let you take a moment there to just see if you have to ask him if you can connect your heart space to his, and he may not let you, so don't be disappointed. Just putting him back in his cage. And I will come back in a moment. I'll just let you connect with him for a moment here. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to share through the chat, and then I'll read them out because I'm the only one who can see what's in the chat. What your experience was with any one of the animals, if you would, or even all three if you want. But with the lovely dog Klaus, with the cat Audi, Audi, and with Link, the ball python. And I'm just at this moment sending appreciation to Link. Link is a funny kind of solitary character. And we woke him up. So if you can share in the chat any experience that you may have had. I suppose you can share if you had no experience, then at least I know where we're at when we get here to the group clearing session, which is coming right up. Somebody asks if Link is my mouse trap. Link eats rats. They're dead. They're frozen. They come from the rat factory. And they come all nicely packaged, frozen. They come on dry ice, and I keep them in the freezer and defrost them, of course, because snakes don't eat cold things. So somebody says, Audi and I have a mutual appreciation. He's met Audi. He used to sit on the couch next to me, just touching. After the session ended, he would leave. Audi is kind of hot-blooded, and he does not like to sit on people's laps because there's too much heat. But he'll sit next to you, and usually just touching. So that's how he expresses his connection. But on the feeling level, you know he's there because he comes and sits with you, and it's a very real thing. Very real thing. And then there's another note that says that the dog's toy is Harry the Hedgehog. Anybody else want to share then before we move on? We got to get to the group clearing session. A quote from Winston Churchill. A dog will look up to you, a cat will look down on you, but a pig will look you in the eye and see his equal. And then another one. I must confess, I never considered having a snake as a pet. Maybe my prejudice, but he seems self-contained, content to be himself as he is, but reluctant to share, not needing to share. A snake is just who he is. Very good. Very good. And particularly a ball python. I've had snakes as pets since I was a kid. Um, and some snakes um, I really felt a connection with, and they with me. Um, and they would enjoy being handled and cared for and tucked into my shirt and that sort of thing. We used to, you know, uh, go like that and put the snake's head in, and the snake would crawl inside, and then it would settle, down around the belt line, stay warm. They like that. But that's a lovely description of of the independent, self-contained nature of a snake, um, and partly with the ball python because they're only up at night in the dark, um, and they'll try to hide if you turn the light on. Like when Link woke up there, he immediately started searching for a place to hide, and I had uncovered his head. But when I brought him out of the aquarium, the terrarium, um, I covered his head, and so he was quite content to just be curled up in my hands. They are, after all, a ball python. That's why they're called ball pythons, because they'll normally just curl right up, and you just carry them around like a ball. Um, Somebody says I prefer furry pets who love to be petted, but I guess a snake lives. But I guess snake lives matter. Sorry, I got the phrasing wrong on that. But I guess snake lives matter. They do. They do. I remember a story from Burma, I think it was, Myanmar now, of God, I can't remember what he was, an archaeologist or anthropologist or something. I think it was an anthropologist. Was traveling with a local native group in the jungle, and they stopped suddenly, and then this Burmese python crawled across the path. It was quite a large one, apparently. They grew to, I think, 8 or 9 feet. Quite a big snake. And they just waited. And the striking thing about the story was that the leader of the group knew the snake was going to be there. And so he stopped the group, and then the snake emerged and crawled across the path and disappeared into the vegetation again. Uh, and so that's one of the things that, qualities you can develop, and it's a wonderful quality. Okay, we've had a number. If there are others comments that show up later, I will um, read them. Um, but I think we will draw this to a close. Just to remember that this is this is heart space stuff, intuition. We feel it on that subtle level where it's quiet inside us, and we extend that out or bring in. You can do it either way, um, and connect with the heart space of the animal that you're working with or the person, and appreciate them, and then whatever questions you may have or things you want to share with them about, particularly positive things, not negative, positive things. Animals are very sensitive to negativity. If you have negative vibes, if you're angry or quite anxious, um, they will sense that, and they may not want to communicate with you, may not want you in their heart space uh, like that. On the other hand, they may very well welcome you. Um, I will tell a story, one more story. Um, I had a marvelous yellow Labrador one time, a big one, with a very large head, which is unusual because Labradors usually have a head that looks like it's too small for their body. But this one had a really big head. Wonderful dog, and he was my loyal companion at a time when I was under enormous stress. I was a resident in pediatrics at that time, studying pediatrics. And I think I was on call at the time this happened. Uh, I was on call every third night. I mean, I spent every third night in the hospital, and I would be lucky if I got 1 or 2 hours of sleep. So when I get home, I would usually, on the day after being on call, I typically would have dinner, interact with the family for a few moments, and go to bed. And then the next night I would be sort of human, and then the next night I have to go to bed early in order to rest up for another night on call. Yeah, no, it's only 2 nights. Yeah, when I was on every third night, there was only the night one night to recover and another night to get prepared. Um, and so I was feeling pretty stressed out at one point. It was late in the fall, beautiful weather, leaves already turned, I think. Um, and I took the dog out into the woods. Um, it was some park, some county or state park. So I was out in the woods and walking along, and I was just kind of really into how stressful um, life was at that point because not enough family time and not enough downtime. It was just and the working on the pediatric ward very intense. Um, Kids were pretty sick, that kind of thing. There was a lot of stress. It was just really kind of unstressing. And beautiful day though. Temperature was probably in the 40s, so it wasn't too cold. And I was dressed. The dog, of course, was fine. So we took a good long hike through the woods. Dog, always reasonably nearby. Dogs like to go off and sniff stuff. Um, pick up a rabbit track or some other animal, follow it for a few moments. And at one point, I was kind of despairing and I sat down on the side of a hill, not a real steep hill, but a hill. And I sat down on leaves and it was a beautiful place. And I just, ah, so my feet were downhill and I was sitting there and this dog, who was a big dog, came behind me, sat down and leaned back into me so that he would support me. And I leaned back into him and we supported each other. He was slightly uphill from me. And we just leaned into each other. And it was one of the strongest moments of connection with an animal. And obviously he was just there to literally support me, figuratively, emotionally, and physically. It was a very, very powerful moment. So that's what I would call a nice introduction to animal communication. There are many details that you can learn. I strongly recommend the book, which I did not bring in with me. I should have. Um, but it's Pia, P-E-A. It's spelled, it looks like the word P, but I believe she pronounces it Pia, P-E-A. Pia Horsley, Horsley. Um, so it's easy to do. And all you got to do is practice. The animal, by the way, does not have to be in the room with you. And in fact, animals often don't want to be looking at you or to be looked at when they're communicating with you. They communicate just fine if they're hidden from you behind a chair or in the other room or whatever. You just connect heart to heart wherever the heart is, because in the field, it doesn't matter where they are. I should also add that you can communicate with animals that have passed over, that have died. Um, and you may feel their presence from time to time. And when you do, you can again open to them and say, "Oh, are you trying to communicate with me? You have something to tell me now, or just want to be with me, or just to remind me, that you think I'm a good person, and be supportive of me in that way, or maybe you need a little reinforcement." And remembrance of what a wonderful animal you were. So just on that heart level, just connecting on that heart level. And same with humans who have passed over. You do the same kind of thing. I do that I would say fairly often. If somebody has issues with somebody who has crossed over or just needs their support, um, you know, just tune in like that, heart space to heart space. Okay, we'll end the recording here, but just to leave the announcement that my next webinar will be December 10th, and I think I'm going to go back to the days of my training and do a webinar on matrix energetics, which was basically brought out by Richard Bartlett, who has crossed over just fairly recently, months ago. Um, I think I didn't get an announcement. Um, but anyway, I think we're going to do matrix energetics. So we'll stop the recording, take a very short break, and then go on with the group clearing session. That won't do anything. Here we go.